Yo guitar freaks, welcome back to my channel. Finally another video. It's been a while. And yeah, I'm actually quite sad that I didn't have time to do YouTube demos because that's kind of a passion project for me. And yeah, I've been quite busy. But I think that's a good and a bad thing because you're making some money, but the things that I'm most passionate about, like progressing in my own music and doing YouTube demos, that's kind of falling off the wagon. But yeah, I hope to do some new stuff actually in the summer and hope to do more demos. I have quite the list, but just gradually getting on top of that. So today is a very cool demo because normally when I do a gear demo, I get the stuff from the music store and then I get to try it out for 2 weeks or a month. Then I give it back. And well, in that case, you cannot really take it on tour, take it to the studio, take it on stage, on a rock show, for example. In this case, it's different because this is my personal JCM800 Studio and I used it hundreds of hours within the last 4 years. And yeah, I took it to the studio, I took it on the road, and this thing is just very reliable and yeah, it's one of my favorite amps ever. And to me, it's one of the most quintessential Marshall tones you could get without the heavy weight and without the back pain. We are all not really getting younger. So this is 20 watt and you can switch it to 5 watt or to 20 watt with this switch here. And yeah, everything else is basically just like in the normal JCM800 You do have an effects loop in the back that is currently connected. And well, you do have 2 inputs. We're not going to use the low sensitivity input today because, well, we're just going to rock out, to be honest. Yeah, let's check it out and let's hear some tunes. Yeah, another thing about my history with Marshall amps. So first concert I really went to that left an impression on me was an AC/DC concert when I was like, I guess I was 9 or 10, and I do remember that it was insanely loud, and I do remember that I totally fell in love with the guitar playing of Angus Young. And what I didn't know back then, obviously also the rhythm guitar of Malcolm Young. But yeah, that was, for me, was the moment when I started to fall in love with Marshall amps and that British gritty tone. And well, when I was, I think, about 19 years old, I bought a TSL 100 and I think I played that for just about 10 years. That amp ran through a couple of new tubes and fixes, but that was basically my main amp. Picture here somewhere. And well, the TSL 100 is a great amp, but it's insanely heavy. It's just like above 30 kilograms, I think. And also I did a comparison. So I went in with the TSL 100 and did a shootout against this bad boy because I got curious in the pandemic and we all had just too much time sitting at home. So I did a shootout and fed the same signal to both amps and had the same conditions for recording them. And then I really put on headphones and I think I sat there for 3-4 hours just listening and really honing in on the details. And also I checked out some frequency graphs and tried to analyze what kind of spectrum the different amps put out. And then it became quite obvious to me that this one here, for me, has much more clarity than the TSL 100 has in the crunch channel. So the lead channel, I'm not even talking about that, is very gainy, and yeah, for lead tones it's great. But to get that really quintessential Marshall tone, from my perspective, you have to go to the crunch channel on a TSL100. So really, I did an in-depth shootout with a crunch channel against this one channel bad boy, and each time in a blind test I had to say this has more clarity, like the different tones, they stand out more, if that makes sense. So the TSL100 has a similar gain, but it's a bit more squishy and more modern, you might say. So that's a short story about my experiences with Marshall and my love for Marshall amps. And yeah, not trying to sell anything here, but this bad boy, I think, packs the Marshall genes in a very small package, and yeah, just weighs 9 kilograms. So now that's enough talking, let's get rocking. So today we are checking out this beautiful JCM800. So everything is at noon in the beginning, and this is the pedal board. It's quite the mess at the moment, but it's quite simple actually. So we have the HX stomp in the effects loop running into a looper, going straight back into the return, and I just have a reverb and a delay on the HX stomp, and we are running into my trusty old 1960 AX Marshall speaker with greenbacks. This one is from 1993 actually. It's got the good old greenbacks, and I'm recording the bottom speaker with a Shure SM57 and the top speaker with a Nohype Audio CRM-1. So this is a ribbon mic and the classic dynamic mic by Shure. And yeah, we're running straight into my audio interface, no gimmicks, and probably we will be attenuating the Marshall when we go to the 20 watt mode here. I will probably use a bit of attenuation because this bad boy gets loud and it goes right into the attenuator. Let's see how loud it gets in here, and let's get rocking. Okay, let's start. So the guitar is tuned. This is an HSS Strat. I had it repainted with a sick nitro finish and some stainless steel frets here. It's actually, now it's a no-name guitar, but sounds brilliant. Bare knuckle true grit pickups in there. Let's get started. So everything on the amp is at noon. That should already give us a pretty nice rock tone. Tuning. Okay, now let's try and see how the gain actually behaves. So just gonna turn the preamp up. So the gain gets a bit more fizzy, but I'm almost at 10. I'm like at 9. So I'm gonna dial in a gain that is not yet fizzy, but still nice. Let's try and actually check out the 5-watt setting in exactly that configuration here. So yeah, the 5-watt setting is very usable. I've used it live and also rehearsing plenty of times because yeah, it sounds quite similar. It doesn't sound as big, but if we would actually gain compensate now, so make the setting equally loud to the 20-watt recording, then you can hear that it's actually quite similar. It's yeah, it's very usable, and you can also play it at a reasonably quiet level. Yeah, that's some classic Marshall tones, I would say. Yeah, if you roll down the preamp, you get very much in the AC/DC territory. So. But yeah, I usually use a bit more gain, more into the hard rock kind of territory. So normally I would use the gain up to round about 8 and then boost it with a boost pedal. Like the Boss SD1 is one of my favorites for tight rhythm stuff. So let's engage that bad boy. So that's a very bitey and usable rhythm tone here in the room, and in the earshot of the speaker it's a bit too nasty for me, so I'm gonna play around with the EQ just a little bit so you can also hear what it does. So yeah, it also cleans up very nicely even with the boost pedal engaged. If I go to the neck pickup of the Strat, it's perfectly clean. Just a bit of a hair on top. What else? Yeah, actually the setting with everything from the EQ dimed also sounds pretty sick. It's quite a Marshall tone. But yeah, tame the highs a little bit in here because ear starts complaining a bit. Okay, yeah, you can see there's just thousands of 80s rock riffs in there, and all I would personally do, especially with this rather low output pickup configuration, just use a boost pedal. The boost pedal doesn't have gain itself, it just pushes the amp to get a bit more saturated, and yeah, that would be my desired rock live sound in many occasions. It's yeah, it will really cut through the mix, and now it sounds a bit like very midsy. That's also because of the boost pedal, but generally this amp is quite the midsy amp, so with this passive EQ there's not so much you can do. But on the other hand, when I play live, I just want to put the amp here, and basically any setting is a good setting. So it doesn't really deviate too much if you turn on the passive EQ. So EQ turned fully off. So with the treble turned off, that's a setting that some people use when they only use this amp for leads, because it gets a bit more creamy and not so harsh to play. It's a bit easier under the fingers. So now with the treble turned off, let's dial in a nice lead tone. I will add some reverb and delay. Also, I will use the Klon type pedal, because that's a bit more wide in the frequency spectrum, not so honky. Okay, so now we have delay and reverb in the effects loop and the Klon. I'm under the impression the effects loop is not on. Here's another try. Okay, that's quite the wet tone. I wasn't expecting so much delay. Okay, now the dry signal again without any pedals. Still, the treble is all the way down, which makes it a bit easier to play leads and also here in the room. Normally I wouldn't want to be directly in the earshot of the beam, but my studios are terribly small, so this is the way to go for now. Okay, that's enough Mixolydian licks, I think. Let's grab the old tuned down guitar and do some heavy riffage. Okay, now back with my Friedman Noho. So this one is tuned down to B actually, so it's in drop B, and let's see how this old amp from the 80s behaves when I use a little bit of a more modern tuning and some chugging, shall we? could get it a bit tighter because it's a bit floppy. If you're playing alone, that's nice. But yeah, we want our bottom end to be a bit tighter, especially in a band. Boss SD1. Tuning. Okay, let's go even a bit hotter. Let's see what we can actually get out of the amp, gain and metal wise. So more preamp gain, more level on the Boss SD1. Let's hit it. Okay, with the Klon it's very muddy, so if anything it's a lead tone. Okay, I think that's enough. Okay guys, that's it from my side. That was my very unstructured and chaotic review of the Marshall SC20H or SC20H. I'm sorry it wasn't quite as I planned it to be with a loop pedal. It's very hot in here, and also looking at the clock I have to get going already. And yeah, I hope you could find some tones that might be applicable to you, or I could answer any kind of question that you had regarding this amp. If not, just use the comment section below. I'm very happy to help you out if you have questions about this bad boy and also about my recording situation. Just hit me up, subscribe, that would also help me out, and see you on the next video, guys. Rock and roll.